I'm a feminist, but yesterday I went to see Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. And I thought, as I looked at Cher's skin, it's absolutely flawless. More flawless than the 20-somethings in the film. And I thought, I know she can't make any expressions with her face. But I felt like if I was in my 70s and I had no lines at all on my face, would I ever need to show sadness or anger? Surely I would be in a perpetual state of bliss. And maybe it's worth it. I did have the thought, I had the whole thing of going, it would be lovely just to be like, and when would you be down? If you were 78 and you're still in hit films and you're coming in going, can I hear the drums, Fernando? And your skin is perfect. When do you fucking need to look angry?
Maybe...
Or disappointed. Life's not let you down in any way.
But if you're in a film and you're supposed to be acting, maybe.
She didn't need to do any acting.
No.
She just needed to turn up and be fucking Cher.
Fabulous, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If I was Cher, I wouldn't have lived any other life.
No regrets. I'm a feminist, but I have to admit, I'm not sure I know the proper names for all the bits of my noo-noo. I'm not sure I could label it correctly. Is that bad?
I'm a feminist, but I also could not name all the bits of Margaret Cabourn-Smith's noo-noo. When I asked to on a chart. I mean, I don't know if they look the same as mine.
No, exactly.
It could be, no. Well, we can compare later in the dressing room.
I'm scared now.
I'm a feminist, but earlier today I did Google who Cher's doctor is. In case, not now, and I wouldn't ever, but just thought, just in case when I'm 75 I'm not a feminist anymore. And I just want to know, I mean, I wouldn't go to the extent she's gone to. But I'm just saying, if I was 75 and I wanted a little... I mean, someone must come along with a Black & Decker of some sort and do a polish. I wouldn't go onto the knife, but I'd have a polish. And I don't... can any of you say you wouldn't have a polish at 75? Unless you're 75, you can't say that, so stop judging me.
I'm a feminist, but when I was singing the admittedly unfeminist song... Do you love me? Do you think I'm pretty? And my 7-year-old daughter said, well, I definitely think you're pretty. I didn't think, oh, God, my daughter has doubts about her love for me. I thought, yeah, someone thinks I'm pretty.
I'm a feminist, but today I described a man as someone who comes to my husband's poker game, like I was Samantha in Bewitched. I'm sorry, but my husband has a poker game. It's not my poker game. I occasionally play poker in it, but he has a proper boys' poker game, which at one point he said I wasn't allowed to go to because it was boys only. I know.
No, you win that.
He relented when I explained to him feminism. Live from King's Place in London, the Spontaneity Shop presents The Guilty Feminist with me, Deborah Francis-White, guest co-host Margaret Cabourn-Smith, and very special guests Danielle Ward, Anna Crilly and Garrett Millerick, talking about living with regrets. This is The Guilty Feminist, the podcast in which we explore our noble goals as 21st century feminists and the hypocrisies and insecurities which undermine them. I'm Deborah Francis-White, and with me today is Margaret Cabourn-Smith. Have you had a guilty week or a feminist week, Margaret Cabourn-Smith?
Oh, I've had a super feminist week. I've made my husband do all of the childcare.
Yay! I mean, in a way, though, he should do it because he's their father.
Exactly.
And you're working. Well, I don't think men say that, do they? Don't say, this week I've made my wife do all of the childcare because I've been at work.
I certainly let him know that's how I fucking feel.
Yeah.
If that does happen.
Yes, absolutely. Is he minding the children now?
God, I hope so.
How enjoyable. Just give us a cheer if your partner is minding children for you at the moment.
Listen to how excited they are.
They really are excited to be out of the house.
Static.
And I think we are going to cover children tonight because the theme
Cover
of
them.
we're going to cover them.
We're going to put blankets over them just to silence them a bit because they're noisy children.
Because the theme of the show is regret. So
no, listen, guys, both ways, okay?
Both ways.
You can regret having them, you can regret not having them.
Absolutely. And two roads diverge into a wood, and I am fucked whichever way I go.
Yeah.
That is... The
True
road
say.
less travelled by is just as regretful as the other one.
Yeah.
Hello, someone's coming late. Were you late because of a child stopping you being here? Dog sitting, they're just as bad. They are just as bad, if not worse, dogs.
They're worse. They don't learn to talk.
They don't learn to talk. They don't learn to microwave things.
No.
They don't learn to get up and get their own yogurt out of the fridge so you can sleep late on a Sunday. Every day they need to be up. They don't learn to walk themselves.
No.
They don't ever go to school.
No.
And they will never visit you in an old person's home because they'll be dead before you.
Oh,
well, am I wrong? I mean, that's simple maths. Come on.
We're slagging off dogs for dying. Is this the point that we've got to?
We're not slagging them off. We just need to be realistic about what they offer in a relationship. Cats obviously die too, but they ask for nothing before they go, except perfunctory things like leave and have biscuits in the bowl, mate. Like, they just sort of... They give you a snide look, but they're more like teenagers, cats.
I had a tip recently. A friend of mine said, when your children become teenagers, get a dog then, so somebody is pleased to see you when you get home. I think it's a very good tip.
I thought you meant so the teenagers had to walk the dog and got them out of their rooms.
I don't think.
No, well, the other day I said to my friend, does your son still believe in Santa? And he said he doesn't believe in downstairs.
Wow.
Santa is a regret of mine because I found out in a way that... I just found out in a way that, you know...
Did you lose your virginity to him? No, sorry. This has gone way too dark too early.
Actually, do you know what? I regret less finding out about Santa because I worked it out for myself and I did some Columbo-style sleuthing, so I felt clever. I now look back and I think I regret less that than how I found out about sex, which was on a school camp when I was 12, which I think is probably too late. These
Didn't
girls...
know it existed before then?
No. I just thought a man and a woman, well, they got married and moved in together because, you know, I lived in a conservative part of Australia where that's what happened to everyone. I mean, the other people just left. The people who didn't want to do that left where we were living. Yet they went to a city. And so there was no evidence of other lifestyles that weren't a man and a woman getting married and having children. And so I found out because these girls at camp, Bible camp, obviously, it's always fucking Bible camp. It's Christian camps, by the way, are filthy. If you were sending your children off for happy, clappy, you know, it was... I mean, most of my childhood was praying in the bush. But... You know, there was these... That's true. It's true. I don't mean that kind of...
No, I know. It's Australians and their bushes.
No, I didn't know anything about this. I just thought a man and woman got married and then just by living in close proximity, they would... presumably God would bless them with a child or curse them with barrenness. I'd read the Bible. And these girls told me about what happened. I mean, I won't say it here in case anyone doesn't know, but it's... Because it's unpleasant.
How accurate were they?
It's unpleasant. Well, I went home and I said to my mother, I'll never forget it, she was in the garden, and I went into the garden and I said to my mother, I heard this at camp, is this true? And she said, yes, it is, darling. And I said, and did you do that with Daddy? And she said, well, I certainly didn't do it with anyone else, darling. And that was the end of my sex education.
Okay.
Seriously, I regret that a bit. I wish she'd told me, but also I suppose I'd regret that.
Yeah.
I'd regret that conversation as well. Did your parents tell you about sex?
No. In fact, the only... just put books on your floor to, read about it.
They put books on your floor?
Well, no, just sort of go here.
Well, you'd come in after school and there'd be just a book in the middle of the floor.
Yes.
Just that you trip over.
I remember my sister asking what a penis was. I remember that quite clearly.
Oh.
And
what is a penis, just out of interest?
I'm not telling you. You're not ready for that.
Well, I didn't know that a penis got erect. I thought you just had to stuff it in like a marshmallow.
Yes, I thought... Worse than that, I thought you had to get all 3 bits in. Oh. When it was stopped. That's what I
didn't... Until I saw an erect penis, I didn't know they went hard.
Oh, and that's the scariest bit, isn't it?
Well, the fact that they move without the owner's permission, yeah.
And they become, know. They're not just scary when they're just
Can you imagine if you, as a sort of cis woman, when you fancied someone at a party, your arm just started to... and you couldn't get it down. You were pushing it down, and it wouldn't... I mean... Do you see what I mean, though?
Yeah.
That is, if that happened to women, that would have been called witchcraft, and we all would have been burnt in the Middle Ages. It's not right.
Just feel like men, I don't know how you live with those things.
No. That's having a part of your body... That cis men have a part of their body that moves without their permission, and I think it's wrong. So we're talking about regret, and regrets, we've had a few, and about, I suppose, what that means for feminism, that sometimes I think we're dragging so much regret around that it stops us being these kind of powerful Wonder Women because we're thinking, oh, maybe we should have done that, or maybe we should have done that. And I think the patriarchy is always keeping us in a regretful state by showing us alternative lifestyles and doors that we should have gone through and what Bachelor number 3 could have been.
Yeah, I think expectations are just very, very different.
That sort of women should have it all, and also Facebook doesn't help because it's constantly showing you what other people pretend to have.
Yeah, and we all know that's a lie.
Well, let's hope so. We're constantly sold what we should be, and I think what that means is we go, perhaps if I'd done that, I could have been that billboard.
Oh, really?
Well, I think that's what the idea of it is. I'm not saying you should live, you do live like that, or anyone should live like that, obviously. Because if we weren't looking at that and going, we should have all of that, I think we'd have fewer regrets.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're much worse at letting things go. I don't know about you, but I literally, probably 3 or 4 times a week, I wake up in the night and sort of emit a small noise, usually like this. Oh, when I remember something I said or didn't say in about 1998.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I hate myself for it. And most of the time, it's not even that bad. It really isn't. And I have, on 3 or 4 occasions now, apologised to people for things that I've said to them that I could see upset them at the time. And every single time, they haven't had a clue what I was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So I've just told them something rude I once said to them, and then they go, oh, God, yeah, that is a bit rude.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel
like
just
the time
just
Chandler
letting it
goes
wash
around
off me.
to apologise for breaking up with the girl, and she didn't understand the reason why he went. So basically, you're Chandler from Friends.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I am. But I knew this anyway.
Yeah. No, I do too. I get massive cringe. Does everyone get it? Is everyone constantly in a state of cringing about something that's...
I'm wondering if we should all do much worse things and, just feel bad. You murder someone, you probably just think about that all the time.
The views of Margaret Cabourn-Smith are not necessarily those of the Guilty Feminist podcast, and I think we need to make that clear. If anyone here does murder anyone, that was more of a serving suggestion from Margaret.
Wow,
it wasn't...
50 million people. You probably are going to get a murderer at some point.
So we should probably... Are you ready for some stand-up comedy about regret? Then please welcome to the stage the wonderful Margaret Cabourn-Smith.
Hello. I have been thinking a lot about regret because recently my friend and I were asked to write down the number of our sexual partners. Now, give me a cheer if you're happy about the number of sexual partners you have. It's pretty good. I'm impressed by that because basically neither of us were happy about the number. We went in a clinic, by the way. It was at a game show, which is sort of weirder, really, that we were doing a game show where they'd asked us this. But anyway, she very much wanted to have fewer on hers, and I very much wanted to bump my number up. So she was saying things like, well, it's not sex if you keep your bra on, is it? Or I mean, he only put the tip in, so no, I'm not counting that. Whereas I was spending my time going, chewing the end of my pencil and thinking, what about that time I got quite aroused when that boy gave me a piggyback across the campsite? By the way, I never would have believed this was true when I was younger and doing this, but I actually miss dry humping. Because you don't do it as an adult, do you? And there's something quite sexy and illicit about it. But as soon as you start wet humping, which is what we all call sex, come on, You just don't do it anymore because it's just not done. It's like you're not allowed to put the kids to bed and go and have a snog in a bus shelter. Just not done. You're just not supposed to do that. But no, my advice for living with regret is to put a positive spin on it. For example, this is a really, really good icebreaker. I was at a party recently and someone asked, what's the most embarrassing thing you've ever done? Now, I'm telling you now, no one will tell you their number one. Nobody. And you think about it, you're not going to tell anyone the number one. My favourite thing was a guy who was sitting there said, that will remain between me and the person who opened the door, which I just loved. But there was one very sweet, sort of softly spoken woman who said, no, I can't tell you. I'll tell you my number two. So, all right, go on, tell us your number two. And she said, well, I went to this sauna. And, it was an all-female sauna, and she was in there, and she was feeling very British and buttoned up, but gradually, and everybody else was, just letting it all hang out, so she's like, okay. She dropped her towel and was like, was feeling very relaxed and zen and dehydrated. So she went to the attendant and said, is there any water around? And the attendant said, yeah, it's just around that corner. And so she's like, oh, great. And she went around the corner, and there was sort of quite a long white corridor. She's like, okay, well... She walks along the white corridor, and there's a sort of counter at the end. Was he feeling a little bit more naked now? And a woman appears, clothed, but says, oh, can I help you? But she doesn't bat an eyelid, and she said, yes, could I have is there any water? And she said, I'll go and get you a bottle, and she disappears. And then a door that she hasn't noticed opens, and about 10 or 20 and completely clothed people come in, and she realises she's in a gym canteen. Just naked. And the amazing thing was, she styled it out. She said, well, I just waited for the water then. What are you going to do? This was her number 2 story. How is that possible? And anyway, the last thing I want to say about regret is don't leave things unsaid. Genuinely don't leave things unsaid. I got married a couple of years ago and I had an amazing day. I had a really, as it should be, sort of overwhelming, moving day. And a very old friend of mine came up in the evening and she was quite emotional. And she said, Margaret, I'm so overwhelmed by today. And I said, oh, no, I know, me too. And she said, it's just so amazing and you look fabulous and you've got all of these people and the speeches were beautiful and you must just be feeling so loved and so lucky. And I said, I really, really am. And she said, I just want you to remember one thing. And I sort of prepared myself. Oh, my God, what's this going to be? And she said, I beat you in history A-level. Thank you. Regrets.
Our guests today are the creators of the amazing play The Half. Please welcome the writer of the play, Danielle Ward, and one of the performers in it, Anna Crilly. I love you brought your handbags.
You both brought your handbags on stage, and it makes me think you don't trust the Guilty Feminist audience.
Yeah, you thought, no, they'll have my iPhone away.
Actually, I was sort of thinking, well, like when I've done this bit, I could just sort of get my handbag and go home. But I realise now I look like the Queen might go on stage with her handbag.
Always keep your bag with you. Never get separated from your bag. That's a rule for life.
My bag has got my laptop in it, which has all my work, including a script that I was writing today for Idris Elba. Showing off. Yeah, right. So if that gets nicked, I am screwed. Yeah. And it also contains a Gordon's bottle of gin that contains Beefeater gin.
Well, no. Do you know once...
As all bags do.
Once, I'd been sitting in a cafe writing a script, and it was a commission, so it was, worth money, definitely.
Yeah.
And I was walking home. I think I'd got my iPhone out on the high street, then I'd put it in the bag, and then someone had followed me, and he'd waited until I got onto my street, which is dark. And I just felt him pulling it from behind. And of course, you are meant to let go because you're meant to not risk your life. But I knew the script was in there, and I thought, this laptop's going to be 100 quid at a pawn shop, if that. But to me, it's very valuable because I cannot rewrite all of that.
Yeah.
So I just turned around, faced him, and screamed in his face. And I went towards him. Now, this is not advisable. But he freaked out and ran away. And I felt so sorry for him, actually, because because he was like 17 or something, and I just thought, obviously, his older brothers taught him how to make 5 phones or something, and I just bumped into a kid that I knew who was trying to get work experience. And I said, I'll set you up, I'll sort you out a meeting in television. And I just thought, this kid's got no one setting him up a meeting in television. And I wanted to chase him and trip him up and offer to retrain him. But you can't do that because it could be assault. Now, you've written a brilliant play called The Half. And here's the twist. Margaret and Anna are in it together. I know. Margaret is half of the half. Anna's the other half of the half, and Danielle Ward wrote it.
The whole thing.
The whole.
You wrote the whole of the half.
Yes.
So could you just tell us a little bit?
I like to think of it as a platonic love story of two women, and they are picking over the bones of that relationship. But it's set in the world of comedy. It's about a female double act who haven't performed together for 10 years and they come back to perform together. But for me, the fact it's set in the world of comedy is just because that's what I do for a living. And if I was an accountant, I'd have set it there. And
they don't really have double acts in accountancy, I'm telling you.
Oh, I don't think that's true. Any accountants in, there probably are double acts, aren't there? They're probably. Is there some kind of allegiances that you form across the office?
Yeah, there is actually. It's horrendous. Like two sides of one floor will be at war with each other.
Two sides of one floor will be at war with each other, according to one of the Guilty Feminist listeners. So you're absolutely right, Danielle.
The accountancy Romeo
Have you
and
thought
Juliet.
about changing it to calling it the auditors?
I could have done. And that's what it is. Like, for me, the interesting thing is exploring a platonic female friendship. But there are loads of other things in it. There's the ageism
And it's clear that it's platonic because early on Margaret says, I like cock.
We had
too
to
much.
flag it up.
Yeah, she says,
Early on and late on.
She says, I'd be a great lesbian, but I really love cock. And it was said with such relish.
But that is because... So they've
Are you imagining a relish on a penis? Because I am. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I don't imagine chutney on a cock.
That's
There are no penises in there.
Sorry, Danielle, continue.
That's why they call it gentleman's relish.
Oh.
That's what that is, yeah.
Do they?
Yeah. Taste. It's very salty.
Anna's face, if you're listening at home, you're missing Anna's face.
I'm a bit of a prude when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Fair play.
I'll be
Sorry,
honest.
continue with the important
That
stuff.
is because right. So the reason she says I love cock is because they've come together to perform Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and there's also a little bit of so Joan Crawford, quite famously, we all know this about Joan Crawford, right? Used to fuck truckers. So that's kind of where that came from. It's when exploring them as a female double act in this friendship, I also had read a book about Joan Crawford and Betty Davis, and Betty Davis was always quite uptight about her sexuality, and Joan Crawford really loved to explore it, but that was never really portrayed on screen, and that's where the thing about loving cock comes from.
Yeah.
Well,
it was brilliantly funny. I saw the play this afternoon and I found it hysterically funny, but also quite moving and sad in ways. And for me as a woman in comedy, I found it at times, like a knife to the heart. Watching both sides of a double act regret different things, and at times I really felt that I was one character, at times I felt like I was the other character. But the issue of whether to have children or whether to have a career and can you have both comes up. And it really, I just did think, I'm glad I was in a good mood when I saw it, because I felt like, oh God. But if you're not in comedy, I think what Danielle says is true. You'll map your own life experience on it. But it's a very affecting play, I think, and I highly recommend everyone go and see it because it's very powerful. And there's not that much written for two women by a woman. Like, often there's things written for two women by a man. And then they do generally start kissing in their pajamas. And I really, which is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with kissing in your pajamas. I'm not saying that. But I'm not slut-shaming all of the plays at the Royal Court. But I am saying I really loved that it was just about that amazing friendship that you can have with a woman, and you can have no friendship like it and sometimes no rivalry like it. And no one can hurt you the way a woman can hurt you sometimes. And I say this across the plethora, whether you're, gay or straight, nobody can hurt you like a close platonic friendship sometimes. Do you know what I mean by that?
It's sort of a bit like dogs, isn't it? Like, that thing where dogs read you because they sit and watch you constantly. So they learn, you put on your perfume, you're probably going out. Oh, sad face. You put on your a certain top, or you start putting on your makeup. My dog will watch me put on my makeup. And it's sort of like in a female double act, I think you spend so much time watching each other that you start to know how to get to that person. And I think that's what Danielle's done really brilliantly in this play, is that you just know the buttons to press because you spend so much time in each other's company.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a family as well. It's like every argument that I have with my sister has the echoes of arguments that we've been having since, so I make her feel stupid and she makes me feel mad. And that is the way our arguments go. And it doesn't matter what it's about. I remember having crying in a cupboard after having an argument about, what was it? I think it was about Michael Jackson. It was nearly always about Michael Jackson. But I remember
That's not where I was expecting that to go.
No,
and
it was very much pre. It was about his performance on the Brits. In fact, I think she was defending him. And I was saying Jarvis Cocker was right. Anyway, I was crying
this
in a
story
cupboard.
so much that it's on the nose. Continue.
Yeah, and I was crying in a cupboard, too old at that point, can I say. I remember my best friend coming in and saying, Margaret, this isn't about Michael Jackson, is it? And I said, yeah, it is, because it was, but it also had all of those terrible things that that you
those
do with your
that
sisters.
You can push.
Yeah.
Hello, Guilty Feminists. It's Deborah Francis-White from the Guilty Feminist, briefly interrupting your podcast to let you know about some upcoming activities. On the 1st of October, we will be in Dublin at the Vicar Street Theatre, and Alison Spitter will be co-hosting that podcast. Please come along. It's going to be a very exciting night. On the 10th of October, we will be in London at the Barbican. It'll be another really big show like the Palladium. It's a 2,000-seater. Please get your tickets now. It will be all singing, all dancing, and will include, in fact, a performance by Suffrageddon, as well as lots of your favourite Guilty Feminist comedians. On the 20th of October, we will be at the Liverpool Playhouse. And you can see details of all these upcoming shows at guiltyfeminist.com. I have written a book, which I'm very excited about. It's got lots and lots of new material about my views on contemporary feminism and guilty feminism, as well as a few old favourites that people have asked for to have in print. You can order it from Waterstones, and you can go to guiltyfeminist.com and click on book to find out how to do that. It's coming out in September. If you're international, you might want to go to amazon.co.uk. I am doing some book tour events in September when the book is released. The events that are sold out now are the ones in London, Manchester, Leeds and Glasgow, but there are still tickets for the book events in Brighton, Liverpool and Birmingham. It's £20 a ticket, but you get a hardback book included in the price. And I will be on stage talking about the book, being interviewed about the book, doing a reading from the book, and I'm happy to sign your book afterwards and say in it anything you like. So please come along to one of those events if you can. The book will be out September 6th, and all of the events are in September. Check them out at guiltyfeminist.com. Now, I said last week I had some exciting news about the Edinburgh Festival. Our shows are sold out, but here's the news. Amnesty International UK and The Guilty Feminist presents The Secret Policeman's podcast. It's hosted by me, and The Guilty Feminist is joining forces with Amnesty International UK to bring The Secret Policeman back to life for 2018, following the magnificent Secret Policeman's tradition of presenting comedy greats for a night of misbehaviour, which goes all the way back to the 1970s. A hugely talented and diverse bill of performers will create some hysterical comedy and magical music. We will bring the funny to the Edinburgh Playhouse for 2 rocking historical nights, but cannot guarantee the roof will be where it was when we leave. The Secret Policeman's podcast is at the Playhouse Theatre in Edinburgh on Friday the 24th and Saturday the 25th of August from 7:30pm to 10pm. Tickets for the event will cost £25 and will go on sale Wednesday the 1st of August, so you're the first to know. All profits from sales are donated to Amnesty International UK Section Charitable Trust. Get your tickets. It's going to be an extraordinary night. We will announce the bill next week, but there will be a lot of your Guilty Feminist favourites on it. It's going to be a truly, truly wonderful and memorable night. On an upcoming episode that we've already recorded but hasn't been released yet, we feature an incredible a cappella group in the style of Pitch Perfect, the Oxford Bells. They're young women from Oxford University and Oxford Brookes University who do amazing a cappella singing. Their show this year at the Edinburgh Fringe is called Women of Note, and they are on at 1pm at C venues between August 11th and 18th. And I wanted to let you know now, in case you're going up to the Edinburgh Fringe,
They're truly amazing. I don't want you to hear them later and be sorry you missed them. So here is a little trailer of the Oxford Bells, Women of Note.
You don't own me. I'm not just one of your many toys. You don't own me. Don't say I can't go with other boys. Don't tell me what to do, and don't tell me what to say. And please, when I go out with you, don't put me on display. You don't own me. Nah, don't try to change me.
Please welcome to the stage, Deborah Francis-White!
Mine's quite short. Firstly, I've written a list of 10 things I regret. 1, not shagging around more when I was younger. 2, everyone I shagged when I was younger. 3, not working hard enough at university. 4, not getting drunk more at university. 5, not going blonde in my 20s because I was waiting until I was thin enough. 6, not going blonde enough now because I'm waiting until I look like I'm in my 20s again. 7, not buying real estate when I left university and it was relatively accessibly priced and they were 110% mortgages and having paid off a flat by now. 8, not having the kind of job that would have made any real estate accessibly priced ever. 9, every job I started and gave up within 2 weeks that would have allowed me to find any real estate accessibly priced ever. 10, watching season 5 of Ally McBeal. Waste of time, man. And I stuck it out. What? Dame Edna Everage was it? What was that? It's disgraceful. 11, in the 10 regrets. Not having children, but also I know I'd regret having them just as much, but at least I'm allowed to admit regretting not having them in public. True story. My friends with children only admit they regret it when they're very drunk. It's true. Really late at night, which is like, I just wish I'd done what you've done. And you're travelling to New York and you've got a comic, and I was like, but I wouldn't have them any other way. I would have it any other way. I've had that conversation more than once. I've had to talk them down from a 4-year-old and 6-year-old twins. Maybe they just say it to make me feel better. They don't. 10 things I don't regret that you'd think I would. Comedy. Comedy improvisation. Watching seasons 1 to 4 of Ally McBeal. Solid, they stand up. I mean, they're dated, but they stand up in a way that, they were very innovative. The 21 scripts in my drawer that I have written that took thousands of hours that are as yet unmade because it meant that one script was made. It's not come out yet, so the applause is probably previous, but still, I know it's made. Having cats instead of children, 28 days out of every given month. I don't regret that. February is particularly cheerful. Being a Jehovah's Witness. It gives you loads of comedy material and empathy and the baseball bat in the face realisation that you're going to die. And also, I mean, people think stand-up comedy's hard, but at least you've left the fucking house. Not being flaky and turning up for things when I should be doing self-care, because sometimes being reliable in a world of cancellation is just valuable. Even if you're exhausted, even if sometimes it's just good to be where you said you would be and be the friend or be the person. I just think it's good to be reliable. I should have looked after myself. No, sometimes you shouldn't look after yourself. You should look after other people. Other people need looking after too. Self-care is also important. Holding out and waiting for him to apologise to me. Telling him to fuck off. Not literally, but metaphorically by changing the subject when he apologised. Trying Hollywood. And everything I've ever done, including all the things on my regret list, because they've got me here today, and without them I wouldn't have Tom and the Guilty Feminist and all the amazing direct action that we're doing together. So I don't regret anything, most of the time. Thank you very much. What made you write this play, Danielle?
Partly from and I hope this doesn't sound too cynical, I think and also this is really interesting when you look at the context of what Hannah Gadsby's been able to do in comedy. I was frustrated with stand-up comedy in terms of an audience, especially a club gig, an audience will sit there going, come on then, make me laugh. They don't mind having a little bit of an emotional journey, but generally it was like you make them laugh loads, that earns you a 40-minute point where you get to do something a little bit sad, but then laugh, and the end of the show. And I found it frustrating only ever being able to write to order for jokes. And what I really wanted to do was write something that took an audience from really laughing to somewhere quite tragic. And so I wanted to be able to explore that journey as a writer. The reason that I chose the setup of a double act is I remember saying to Margaret when I was drunk, so we did a read-through years ago. Margaret did a read-through for me of a very early version of the script where it was just 15 minutes, 2 women slagging off panel shows. That was literally, it was just 2 women basically having a go at Frankie Boyle. That's not in the script anymore. He's changed. But it still brought up the thing of whether to have children or not, and whether to go to LA or not, or what you should do with your career. One of you wants to stick to the art, the other one is about entertaining the audience. I think we all do. We grapple with, are we doing the right thing? Is the path that I've chosen the right path? And maybe exploring that, for me personally, in a different fashion by playing out these 2 sides. Like, they're both me. There's things that happen in the play. There's a bit about a sexual assault that's partly taken from my own life and partly taken from stories that I've heard other comics come up with. It's all grounded in my own feelings towards myself. But equally, when we went into the rehearsal room, I spoke to Anna and Margaret. I've never been in a double act. And I spoke to Anna and Margaret and took a lot of guidance on what it's like to actually have someone else that you love and trust say those things to you, rather than just saying them to yourself sat outside a bin.
Yeah, that other person or that best friend. And in a double act, that best friend also becomes that sort of trusted advisor and working partner as well. And it sort of can deepen the relationship and complicate it. There is a real Me Too element in it about how women feel complicit or are accused of being complicit sometimes in their own sexual assault, because unless they go and report it instantly or refuse other career opportunities linked to that person, then somehow we feel complicit or we feel guilty. And really, actually, the greater victimhood sometimes comes on you after that act has been perpetrated and you're left to deal with whatever you do. There's an element of guilt or there's an element of self-doubt. And that's a really interesting thing that's explored in the show.
Well, it was interesting at the Harvey Weinstein thing. What was so interesting about that was how quickly it became about all the women who hadn't said anything. You know, like the day after it came
Meryl
out, suddenly
Streep,
all of these
why did
pictures of
she
him with
knew?
lots of
She
women.
knew.
It's going, hold on, can we not talk about him a little bit longer?
And
before
also, Meryl Streep said she didn't know, and I'm like, if she didn't have any evidence, can you imagine what she would have got if she'd gone, look, I've heard a lot of rumours about Harvey Weinstein, I can't prove any of them. Can you imagine what would have happened to her career?
Yeah.
Like, what option did she have? I don't know whether she'd never heard anything or she'd heard things, but I've heard things about people in comedy. I can't prove them, so it's unlikely that I might say tonight, but if I haven't, someone gets me a gin and tonic, but... if you haven't got any evidence, you can't just be going
Spread
around...
stuff.
No.
You can't, no, and that's the problem. You can't do that. And also, there was a bit that got cut from the play because it ended up making the scene too long. So one character uses the sexual assault of another to kind of have a go at her. And there was a little bit afterwards where it explored the Savile thing. And one of the characters says, look, the worst thing that ever happened to the BBC was Jimmy Savile, and the BBC's still standing. Do you think anybody is going to care what happened to me? It's so tiny compared to that. And I do think that's still the case. Like, I know someone who, there was a producer that they didn't want to work with because they'd not, like, you know, I say, oh, it felt like I'm trivialising it now. They'd just been a bit handsy. But that's still a horrible thing to happen. And they said, I don't want to work with this person. It's still sexual assault. And even I feel weird for going, but it was just this, because, you know, compared to Savile,
but that's what we're
that's what we do,
That's the
right?
narrative
That's
and the
what we do.
rhetoric and compared to you and all of that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. And so they said, I don't want to work with this person anymore. And it was like, fine, yeah, we'll never let you. And then that creeps back in, and the next, and they end up having to work with them because it's 4 years down the line and it's a different line manager and there was never a report, and this person that they don't want to work with is still in the system, they're still there. What are you going to do? And that happens, and it's endemic. It's not just the comedy industry, obviously. I think it's endemic across all industries. I have only ever had one experience of sexual assault. It was by a male comic after a gig. But I don't know if he's ever done that to anybody else. And again, it feels so weird saying this. It could have been a misjudgment. But also, he could have done it to 20 other people that month, and I don't know. So what am I going to do? Say his name and hope other people come forward? Because then I become the story. We've seen it happen so many times, and I'm not prepared to do that.
I understand what you mean. And the play goes down some avenues like that, as well as being very funny and about
It is funny
things,
as well.
Yeah, I think we need to... About being...
It's only one scene.
That's only one scene. It is very, very relatable. If you've ever had a female friend and have felt some resentment, just give us an if you know that feeling. And you feel like hardly done by, just give us an Yes, and you feel like your friend hasn't been the feminist she should have been in the friendship. Then this play is for you. But also, if you've ever had that dichotomy around whether to have children and what that's going to do to your life and career, this play is also for you. It's very, very interesting, it's funny, it's moving. And your character is it tough to play sometimes? Or are you really enjoying it? It's very meaty.
Oh, what?
I feel like your character's dark and meaty. I mean, is that a description I'm allowed to
I
use? Dark and
wasn't
meaty?
going for dark and meaty.
You can put that on the
But
poster,
I'll take
Danielle.
it.
Dark and
Dark
meaty,
meaty.
Guilty Feminist.
Yeah.
5
We are
stars.
going to use that.
I mean, seriously, yeah.
Dark and meaty?
Yeah, she's quite troubled and it's complicated, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is she enjoyable to play?
Yeah, I mean, I go the first half sort of being silly and doing a voice, and then the second bit I sort of turn on the taps.
And that's acting,
And
ladies
that's
and
acting,
gentlemen.
darlings. Where can you see these diamond performances, which they really are? They're brilliant performances.
It's on at the Pleasance upstairs for the whole of Edinburgh at 2:00 in the afternoon.
And by the whole of Edinburgh, Danielle does mean the
yeah.
Edinburgh Festival.
Yeah, not...
Not until Edinburgh is destroyed.
Comedians talk about Edinburgh like it's Brigadoon, like it's a month.
like
It's like
purgatory,
it
doesn't
appears,
it?
then it goes away. It's a city all year round, and our Edinburgh listeners do. No, it's still, we all do it. We all talk about at the end of Edinburgh, like it's like it just
It goes May, June, July,
So the whole of the
Edinburgh,
Edinburgh
September,
Festival,
October, November.
It's true. I know someone once at a passport office that was saying, yeah, I was born on the 7th of Edinburgh, and the guy was looking at him and he was going, oh, I'm in August. So it's on the whole of the Edinburgh Festival Fringe.
Yes.
What time?
2 p.m. at the Pleasance Courtyard.
Pleasance Courtyard. Go along and check it out. There'll be previews before. You can find it at, is it the Half the Play on Twitter?
I don't know.
Yes,
The half play on Twitter.
play.
But I do thoroughly recommend it. I really enjoyed it. I laughed, I cried. I thought I still feel a little bit like, which is always the best. Now, speaking of the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, I am going to invite a man onto the stage. I know. Now, there's a reason for this, and I will explain in a little bit, but I want him to come up and do 5 minutes of stand-up. He's a very good friend of mine. He's also a man who comes to my husband's poker game. But he's not the man I was talking about. He's also a very dear friend and a brilliant comedian. Please put your hands together and make extraordinary, welcoming, guilty feminist noises for the wonderful Garrett Millerick!
Good evening, Guilty Feminists! Thank you very much for having me. I'm going to cut straight to the chase. It's a 5-minute segment from a 55-minute show, so let's get down to brass tacks. Well, in April of this year, I was at the Comedy Store in the dressing room, and I was just about to walk on stage, and my wife, who always is very, very keen that I don't get blasé about doing things like that, she sent me a text message. And I pulled the phone out, and the text message said that she was pregnant. And I was absolutely overjoyed, but was presented with a problem, as every single joke I'd ever written immediately left my head. And then I walked on the stage, and I came up to the mic stand, and my brain was like, don't worry, I got this, and it whispered a routine, straight in my head, popped in. But it was a routine that opened my last show about how I didn't want to have children. Which was perfect, actually, because I got a video of that, and I will be able to play it to my children. And go, this is what I said to a room full of strangers when I found out you were going to exist. How soon after? Literally seconds. See the approval of the strangers? Happy birthday. My mother, when my sister was 21 years of age, in her birthday card, my mother gave her the best birthday present I've ever seen anyone get given. She gave her the receipt for the alcohol and food that was consumed on the night she was accidentally conceived. What a present! And I was 21, and I was like, Mum, where's my receipt? And she was like, you're the second child, you were planned. I was like, ah! So that presented a number of problems. One of the main problems that presented to me, my wife being pregnant, was I realised I knew absolutely nothing about pregnancy because I went to an all-boys Catholic boarding school. Yes, indeed. So we had one lesson on pregnancy. Went like this. We all sat down. We were about 17. A priest came into the room. That's right, sir, a priest. And he said, today we are going to talk about a woman's right to choose. Now, I think we can all agree choice is a very good thing. Yes? Yes? Now, of course, nobody in their right mind would be in favour of terminating a pregnancy. Of course, nobody in their right mind would be in favour of something like that. But of course, we are all in favour of choice. Yes? Yes? So, right, I will give you an example. We will go an example. Okay, quality of life. That is, of course, a situation where we may wish to choose to terminate a pregnancy. Quality of life, of course, boys. Right. So, example the first. You have a young child, they're going to be born into poverty. That's not a very nice life, is it, being poor? No. Going to be born into poverty. Furthermore, the child will be deaf, won't be able to hear. Wouldn't be a very nice life then, would it? No, not a very good quality of life not being able to hear. So in this instance, we, of course, choose to terminate the pregnancy. Yes? 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 You've just killed Beethoven! Heard of him? Fairly significant figure, you're wiping off the face of the planet with your adherence to this ridiculous notion of choice. I'll give you another example. Example the second is a young lady, she falls pregnant, is not her husband's child. Oh dear, we better terminate the pregnancy. Yes, yes, you've just killed Jesus. And then he wheeled in a video machine and he showed us a video of an abortion happening live on a sonogram that was introduced by then President of the National Rifle Association, Charlton Heston. And then he proceeded to go around the room going, so, you in favour? You in favour? And when he got to the end of the room, he spoke to my friend Oz. Oz refused to admit it was anything worse than squashing a fly, and the priest kicked a table over. That was the sum total. So when my wife got pregnant, I decided to, I'll get some books on pregnancy. Now, mate, just tell you this, if you ever find yourself in a situation where your partner is pregnant and you want to get a book on pregnancy, do not get a pregnancy book aimed at men. Oh, my dear God. I read two of them because I was like, the first one might have just been an accident. But basically, they start off with chapters that go, well, I found out my wife was pregnant.
I discovered there were no books written by men aimed at men describing pregnancy. So I was like, I better write one.
Now, when they say by men aimed at men, what they mean is written by fools aimed at fools. They are all written like mid-90s copies of FHM. One of them said, 75% of lads, upon finding out their missus is pregnant, think, is it mine? No, they fucking don't! They all do things like, who are you asking? Which 100 blokes did you... Well, we went in this pub in the middle of the football and went... They're all written like mid-90s copies of FHM. If they use a word like cervix, they have to follow it 2 lines of banter, and it's just... It's just unforgivably awful. So, to the gentlemen in the room, please, if you ever find out that one of your loved ones is pregnant and you want to gen up on the subject, do what I eventually did, which is buy a pregnancy book aimed at women and use all of my education, nous and skill to do revolutionary things like replace words like you with words like her, and it was so much easier. Anyway, thank you very much. Cheers.
Garrett Millerick, everybody! Garrett,
Deborah.
thank you so much for doing that stand-up. It was
Thank you
lovely.
very much for having me. Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Could you tell us a little bit about your show, how it started and how it's changed?
Yes, so the slight ruse there was sort of difficult to do in a 5-minute segment is unfortunately a number of weeks after that we lost the baby. So I was sort of caught in this situation where I'd started the year and I was writing one show, and then I found out Sarah was pregnant, and then I was writing another show, and then the whole thing collapsed, and then I wasn't really thinking about comedy, so I just took a long time off comedy, and it sort of ended up that through the unfortunate situation we spent a long time making each other laugh. And so I ended up thinking, well, what was I going to do eventually when it came around to doing Edinburgh? Because it's this, as we've discussed here, it's this thing that happens in August, and it's sort of the train leaves the station in sort of December. And I was like, well, I've got a third of 2 shows. So I was like, okay, well, what I did, I then decided to kind of present them as like an unfinished demo. So I've got the first 2 pieces of the show as written, the piece I wrote earlier in the year, the piece I wrote during the pregnancy, and then I'm kind of doing a kind of meta exploration of why I can't finish either of those shows, and kind of, I guess, a celebration of comedy and laughter, and a show about how it was laughter that got us through it, and just me and Sarah making each other laugh in the dark time was really the only thing we had at certain points, and I kind of wanted to share that. So that's what I decided to do the show about.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I wanted Garrett to come and share this because we were talking about Edinburgh events tonight, and I really wanted Garrett to come and talk about it because I think it's a really important show, and I want to make sure the right audience finds Garrett in Edinburgh, because Edinburgh can be a very soul-destroying place, even if you've got a show you don't care much about. So if you are going to Edinburgh, seek Garrett's show out, because I think it's going to be really special. Where can we see your show in Edinburgh, Garrett?
It is on at 5 o'clock every day at the Tron.
And what's it called?
It is called Garrett Millerick's Sunflower.
Okay, well, we will all come along and see that. In fact, if you're not going to the Edinburgh Festival, go to the Edinburgh Festival specifically to see Garrett Millerick's Sunflower, and also The Half by Danielle Ward, starring Margaret Cabourn-Smith and Anna Crilly. Also, on the Edinburgh Festival front, there was a tragic murder of a young comedian who was walking home in Melbourne called Eurydice Dixon. And Edinburgh is a wonderful city, and we adore it. But any time there's a festival, there's lots of people coming and going, and there's lots of alcohol and all sorts of things going on. You can feel more unsafe, especially if you are a visitor in that city, so you don't have your normal support networks, you don't have your normal routes home. So we are collectively, headed by the wonderful Angela Barnes, who's an amazing comedian, we are collectively getting together the Home Safe Collective. If you'd like to donate, we're collectively funding a Home Safe taxi fund, so that if a woman or non-binary person or trans man does feel suddenly vulnerable and like, oh God, this guy's been hassling me, or all my friends have gone home and now I'm not sure of the way, or I suddenly get that bad feeling, they can ring up this taxi number and give them the code and a taxi will come for them. Those are some things that you can support at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival this year. So I'd like to say a huge round of applause to the wonderful Anna Crilly, the excellent Danielle Ward, and the phenomenal Garrett Millerick, and my amazing co-pilot for this episode, Margaret Cabourn-Smith.
Thank you! Deborah Francis-White!
You have been listening to The Guilty Feminist with me, Deborah Francis-White, guest co-host Margaret Cabourn-Smith, and our very special guests, Danielle Ward, Anna Crilly, and Garrett Millerick. The recording engineer was Chris Sharp, music was by Mark Hodge, the producer was Tom Salinsky for the Spontaneity Shop. Thanks to Zoe, Jacob, Sally, and everyone at King's Place, as well as all of you for listening. For more information about this and other episodes, visit guiltyfeminist.com. Anna's just going to pop to the loo. Are you coming back? She's left her handbag. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
We've never had that before, but to be fair, she's not been working for a while. I mean, on this stage. I mean, she works a lot. I don't mean that. That sounded like, oh, she's hardly worked. I mean, we haven't put her to work for a while. I mean. Sorry, yeah, good.
Hello, Guilty Feminists. This is Tom. Deborah is currently at the Help Refugees Calais warehouse and has sent this report through today. The shelves of the warehouse are empty. This building, a hub of the operations across northern France, is really struggling to meet the needs of the people in Calais and Dunkirk. There are no tents, less than 500 blankets, around 100 pairs of shoes, and no socks or underwear to be seen. Numbers are rising here through the summer months, and we simply don't have the stock to be able to distribute essential items. Last night, people slept outside on the sides of motorways and under bridges with no shelter from the rain, as we have no tents or emergency shelter to give. If we need one thing right now, it is donations. Please shout out to all your friends, colleagues and families to explain the situation. Our most needed items are small and medium men's clothes, size 41 to 43 trainers, tents and blankets. For information about how to send donations to our warehouse, please contact Calais Donations at helprefugees.org and find your nearest drop-off point, or donate funds directly to our Calais warehouse at donate.helprefugees.org/campaigns/northern-France. Items can also be delivered straight to us here in Calais through our leisure fare page or on our Amazon wish list. And I'll put both of those links, as well as the other two, in the show notes. Thank you for your generosity in supporting Help Refugees. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.